So the sonic texture of this song is so interesting. With a minimum of input, there's a real sense of atmosphere here. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Audiophiles. My name's Johnny's name's Andy. I see a clinic full of cynics who want to twist their people's wrists. They're watching every move we make. We're all included on the list. More on that later. But first, we've got a track to listen to. Andy, what have you got for us today?
Well, we're going to be revisiting a band that we have done, God, I think 4 other times on the channel. This will be our 5th, but it's a new year and they've yet to feature on the channel during the year of our Lord 2026. So I am going to be bringing them. They're a bit of a favorite of yours too, as far as bands that I've offered up on this channel. So let's dig into some without any further ado. Some more Oh Brother. So yeah, it's been a minute, even though we've done all those tracks. They were kind of front-loaded, comparatively speaking, to what we've done of late. So we're gonna go check them out again. And this is I think the first song we've done off their latest or most recent album. I don't think we've done anything off that yet. So this is a song called Locus. And I would love to hear your thoughts of it. Also, spoiler alert, maybe the first time we've ever done a non-live version. This is straight off the studio cut. I think every other time we've covered Oh Brother, it's been in some sort of live setting. So
I think it has, yeah.
Yeah. So here you go. You have to imagine the disheveled flannels and beanies and all that stuff as you give this a go. But please, John, go off, check out Locus, and let me know what you think.
Sure. It's early days, but yeah, really atmospheric start. So we've got this sort of beat. It just reminds me of 2 blokes knocking in a fence post. We've got this sort of low rumbling bass sound. I don't know if that's a bass or a synth. And then these other chimes just sort of wafting and floating around. Very sort of ethereal. And then in comes your man. Immediately sort of think Tom York again. Should know the guy's name by now. But he says something about how he woke in the in-between and his head expanding. Yeah, this all feels very sort of I don't know, spectral almost. I don't know if the in-between is a place. That makes me think of Stranger Things. Or if it's a state of mind, and this head expanding would actually be, his conscious, as it were, taking in all these new things, rather than just going back. Yeah, really interesting, very atmospheric. I really like it so far.
It's a prophecy from a fever dream you shared with me. Criminal
Those piano chords that sort of drop sometimes those piano chords can have a real sort of sense to them. And I was just thinking it sounded quite sort of judgmental, and they said you run like a criminal, which is interesting. So the song is slowly constructing itself before our eyes as bits are filling in and coming in, and it's all starting to coalesce. His vocals are particularly beautiful there. And again, Tom, but they sound lovely, as sort of whispering, emotive, really, really nice. Definitely the sort of synthy bass sound there. So no guitars that I'm hearing at all for a band that sort of had 2 or 3 on the go at any one time. That's interesting.
Love is careless and love is blind. Love is envious. I'm envious. Always thought it was hard to find, but I'm oblivious. Oblivious. Wherever we spend, through the road, through the wind, wherever we spend, through the road and through the wind. You run like a criminal when you need me. You're enchanted and elegant when you need me. You need me. You're enchanted and elegant when you need me. I'm right here. Wherever we spend, further out, further in. I'm right here. Wherever we spend, further out and further like a criminal when you need shut down and elegant when you
That was awesome. I didn't want to interrupt it. The really nice thing about this is that I was listening to this and I didn't know what was going to come next, which you quite often can do with songs. And when sort of like before the 3-minute marker sort of broke down, I knew it was going to come crashing back in, but I didn't know how or what. I still don't. I'm not sure, but I don't think I heard any guitars all the way through that song, which is really interesting. There's these huge slabs of this big synthy sounds that kind of like sounded like massive, giant robots. There's a little bit of that sort of strange instrumental bit on the second half of Boy Races by Squid. It's sort of it's on the same school, as it were. It's not the same sound. But yeah, his impassioned voice. It all sounded great. I haven't got a Scooby what was going on in it. It doesn't really matter to me. But yeah, it sounded fantastic. The way the song sort of came together and then broke and then crashed down, and it just rode in waves, and it sounded superb. And that sort of high chiming part that came in at the end, it was just like washing over me like waves. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. It really impressed me as well. So, and then it just sort of dissipated. Yeah, I'm wondering. Locus is real interesting, whether it's a mathematical or it's sort of like more colloquial, the center of something of interest, or a point or a position within a parabola of curves with mathematics. Yeah, yeah, this is really, really interesting stuff. This band always impressed me, and then impressed me again in a different way. We need to find out more. Let's go back and chop it up with Andy.
All right. So you are back from the muck and the mire, untethered from those heavy, dirgy sounds that the boys know brother like to throw at us. What did you make of this go round?
It's interesting. Yeah, so it starts off with these. My immediate thought with this sort of this slow trudging beat kicks in. It's the never relenting march of the giant evil killer robot that starts this cheery ditty. And those thoughts kind of return later on. But anyway, stray tones kind of waft across the landscape as the bass pounds with the beat of the drum. And I picture a couple of workmen taking in turns just knocking in a fence post. That's what it sounds like to me. But this fence post is obviously clearly like, 20 feet high, because it takes a while. Your man, and I should know his name by now, but can't remember, comes in singing. And once again, the Tom York comparisons start up in my head. It is legal requirement. It starts with, I woke up in the in-between. My head expands, my head expands. So what or where in the world is this song's reference point? It does sound ethereal. The in-between as a place, or perhaps a state of consciousness.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me think of Stranger Things straight away, the in-between. But his head expanding as well. That makes me think of the fallacy of people exploding in space without a suit, which doesn't happen. They're more likely to boil. Yeah, and also the meaning of locus, this like particular point or position, and in maths, and yes, it's called mathematics. So maths is the position of several points formed from an equation or a singular line to create a curve or a parabola, sorry. This locus, but it's also, in common terminology, the locus of something is the center or the source of a point of interest or a phenomenon or whatever. So yeah, all these things are sort of floating away inside my noggin. As the song goes on, there are these spectral voices giving these eerie sort of harmonies. He mentions a shared fever dream, and I don't think he's sharing it with, but it's probably the listener. And the fact he's always been further up and further in, and that's an interesting rhythmic pronunciation of that line. It puts me in mind of sort of rowing action, the way those words sort of thrown, but I don't know why, but it does. So the sonic texture of this song is so interesting. With a minimum of input, there's a real sense of atmosphere here. Odd clanks and hisses join the fence post knocking. And then this powerful piano chord drops, and I'm thinking it's like a judicial judgment or the hammer of a judge. And then the line he sings is "You run like a criminal," which made me laugh, thinking I was just thinking that. And I think through this is a very small, slight trace. I think it's of a vocal. It might be of a synth line that's just holding a note underneath this. It's just real interesting atmospheric touches. So we're witnessing the very slow construction of this song. It's like stitching together of elements um, before our ears. It's fascinating, and it progresses into the next verse. There's a piano fills out, and some other sound, almost like a moog sound, fleshes out the music, and I believe the beat picks up a tad as well. Um, the elements from before begin to sort of make more sense, and they sort of fit into the song structure like floating jigsaw pieces. It's a really nice, like chiming notes that slot in with all the clanks and the beats beautifully. Um, and the piano and the keyboard in particular, their parts seem to stretch over the song like skin, covering it all up, making it tight. Just short of the 3 minute mark, the beat sort of ships out and it leaves a ponderous vocal and just a keyboard. And you know something's going to happen, and it does. At the 3 minute mark, it sort of all crashes in these forceful chords and his plaintive vocals now. So there's the part earlier on, I meant to write this down in my notes, but his vocal delivery at times is almost whispering. It's gentle, it's really beautiful. And, despite my best efforts, I do still think of Tom York because he has done the same thing. It doesn't sound exactly the same, but it's in the same ballpark. So yeah, as I say, this all comes crashing in, and his vocals become more sort of urgent and stronger, and the keyboard part underneath all of this drama underpins it with these massive slabs of sound. And again, I'm going back to this killer robot stuff. It has traces of elements of almost like a sci-fi feel to it at times. So then the song rises with both synth and vocals reaching upwards. And I catch, he says, "You run like a criminal" a couple more times. And the keyboard note rises like an octave. And I'm just reminded of that spacey, it's very funny, but that spacey instrumental part in the second half of Boy Racers by Squid. It's the same sort of weird feeling to it. Um, yeah, it's very interesting, very interesting. And just as I'm admiring this wave of sound washing over me, it just sort of crashes and dissipates. Um, I am going to Scooby what's going on, but I absolutely loved it. And the really interesting thing was there was barely, I don't know if I don't believe, but I don't know if I actually heard a guitar sound at all within that track, compared to what I heard before. So it makes it really interesting. And I think the mark of how good it was is that at no point could I absolutely say that I knew what was going to be coming next, which
Yeah.
made it real fascinating for me. You probably knew it was going to sort of, come to a crescendo, but that's as much as you could tell. So yeah, I thought this was a really interesting, different sound from the guys. But yeah, really impressive as well. Yeah, I loved it.
Awesome. I'm really glad that you did. I do think that you can hear in this, and some of that can be lent to the fact that what we've listened to previously were live iterations of their tracks,
Sure.
but you can hear this, I don't know, development of how
Yeah.
they play with dynamics and what they do, and maybe putting aside some old methods that they had done. Not to say that there's anything wrong with it, but when you have a couple albums where you do it that way, then you want to challenge
Yeah.
yourself on the next go round. You still want to play with dynamics, but you want to do it differently than you have in the past. I think that's as best as I can describe what is on display in this song and on this album. They still love that like, let me lull you in to this false sense of like calm, though there is this roiling unease beneath it, and then let's fucking see how we can make this explode or kick off. Which, you're right, that is the thing that you're probably going to get, but you don't know how you're going to get there. until they've shown you. And that's something I've always enjoyed about Oh Brother and their music. As we've discussed now at this point, or at least alluded to, Oh Brother is no stranger to this channel. So I will mainly focus on this track and the album on which it features, in hopes of not rehashing a lot of the information already covered on our previous episodes. However, I will link the playlist to those episodes down in the description field below this video for ease of access if any of y'all are curious about going back and checking out some of our other videos dedicated to Oh Brother. But they are an Atlanta-based band comprised of, and here you go, I'll dust off your memories here, Tanner Merritt on lead vocals and guitar, Johnny Dang, one half of the Dang Brothers, on guitar, Jordan McInn on guitar, Michael Martins on those pounding drums, and the other half of the Dang Brothers, Anton Dang, on bass. And this track featured on the band's fourth and latest album from 2020, You and I. Oh Brother put the album up on Bandcamp along with the vinyl pre-orders. Both pressings of 500 copies each sold out in about 24 hours. And this was a tremendous feat, especially given that the band self-released it and that it was released during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. It shows how passionate the fans are of the band and also the undeniable greatness of their music. Over at Sputnik Music, the album has been reviewed by 167 users and currently has an aggregated score of 3.5 out of 5, which earns the website's great designation. Mark Martins of music review website Echoes and Dust reviewed the album, and he provided these following blurbs. The intro, You and I, and Soma are two beautiful introduction to the band and a great opportunity to recognize Tanner Merritt as one of the best modern rock vocalists. So much tension is released during these first two songs. They are warm, fuzzy, but also haunting, dark, murky, and yet a bit of light finds its way in. By the way, that could describe every fucking Oh Brother song I've ever heard. The more traditional rock structure and catchy choruses of Halogen Eyes, which includes the participation of singer-guitarist Simon Neil of Biffy Clyro, leads us through darker, slower, and hypnotic passages of Slipping and the doomy dark Locus. Adding Only Other packs copious amounts of emotions into an acoustic guitar and vocal melody. Killing Spree is also driven by such vocal melodies. Its dark, moody, and somewhat twisted vibe somewhat resembles Massive Attack. Black Tide includes your typical Oh Brother heavy guitars, hypnotic melodies, and perhaps could have fit on their previous release, Endless Light. Their last four tracks of You and I continue painting a dark picture with the delicate and sad What We've Lost, with its Radiohead vibes and twisted ending, rain and thunder preceded by stripped down somber tones and built up on Spill on the Carpet, and finally Leave Me Out, a brilliant vocal display which is layered over an extremely dark and heavy melody before the beautiful and solemn piano and vocal outro. Martins concludes, one thing You and I accomplishes better than any of their previous releases is the focus on atmosphere and sparsity. Another, again, the sparsity I think is on display in this song too. They do a lot with a little. I think you kind of alluded to that as you were like, I don't even know if I heard a fucking guitar in this thing. Another would be the way they fine-tuned the balance of simpler structured songs where the vocal melodies lead the way with the heavier and doomier ones. They've expanded their sound into something more wholesome and meaningful. And Katie Johnson of Metal Insider reviewed the album and offered up, the album is a sprawling project that harkens back to the band's enduring catalog and gently but sternly reminds us to challenge the notion that their sound strictly adheres to genre-specific conventions. Through their latest release, a thorough listen will find listeners reminded of the band's in-depth knowledge of how to effectively blend ferocious driving riffs with spacious and atmospheric shoegaze-influenced soundscapes. And at its best, the album feels like a constant yet comforting push and pull, uh, undulating between styles and techniques. It will lead longtime fans and new listeners into a pleasantly unanticipated territory for the band. Adding a standout element of You and I is the incredible production and attention to detail in building and maintaining the album's distinctly ethereal, dreamy atmosphere. Bolstered by excellent production, and instead of falling victim to tired song structures, O Brother displays that while they may, at times, favor a classic slow build to a crescendo, they consistently seek creative ways to work in smaller builds throughout verses. By cleverly layering and shifting between vocals, synthesizers, guitars, shrewd drum beats to create unexpected waves of momentum. And these sections rise and cascade around the more major, heavy sections. And she concluded, You and I is well stocked with roaring and propulsive moments, and while those moments command considerable attention on the record, the project as a whole feels as though it's less about riding on those moments to carry everything else, but is instead more invested in the potential that lies in between and around those moments. There is a brilliance in O Brother drawing the listener's attention toward the pseudo-negative space that happens between major sections of songs, instead of distracting away from emptiness. The record further expands on and diversifies O Brother's already innovative and explorative catalog and hoists their influence as a group that continues to successfully experiment with genre conventions while still adhering to those that will serve a purpose to their ideas. You and I find O Brother doing what they seem to do best, elegantly stabilizing themselves atop an intricate balancing act and remaining bold and steadfast in their choices. So, these lyrics. I woke up in the in-between and my head expands. It's like this liminal state or something I always think of when they're talking about that. I woke up in the in-between and my head expands. My head expands, muttering words of prophecy from a fever dream you shared with me. I am right here where I've always been, further up and further in. I'm right here where I've always been, further up and further in. You run like a criminal when you need me. You are tongue-tied and elegant when you need me. Love is careless, love is blind, love is envious. I'm envious. Always thought it was hard to find, but I'm oblivious. Oblivious. I am right here where I've always been, further up and further in. I am right here where I've always been, further up and further in. You run like a criminal when you need me. You are tongue-tied and elegant when you need me. You need me. You are tongue-tied and elegant when you need me. I am right here where I've always been, further up and further in. I am right here where I've always been, further up and further in. You run like a criminal when you need me. You are tongue-tied and elegant when you need me. When you need me. You run like a criminal when you need me. You are tongue-tied and elegant. So the song explores themes of, themes of liminality, spiritual or mental unease, and complex, perhaps toxic relationships, focusing on being stuck in an in-between state. The lyrics evoke a sense of feverish anxiety, prophetic uncertainty, and constant presence. And referring back to Sputnik, one of the users who reviewed the album elaborated on this track and offered up. Locus is another interesting departure for how it sees the band inverting the traditional definition of post-rock. On the one hand, this track is the most reminiscent of Oh Brother as a climactic rock band in its pacing and dynamics, overtly striving for the kind of towering climax they built their name on. On the other hand, it's one of the most reticent tracks to present this structure in anything approaching the language of their staple tracks. Anton Dang's bass crashes in for the climax, but otherwise, this is one of the most rock-shy ensembles you could hope to hear on an overtly rock track. Which I think is interesting and kind of touches on at least how I experienced it. It sounds like similar for you because the absence of like the immediate presence of guitars, which seems to be one of the first thing one would expect from an overtly rock track. Here, it's harder to find through all of the odd, as they put it earlier, negative space that becomes oddly the focal point of the song, which I think is an excellent way to sum up how you experience this track as a listener. So yeah, I'm really glad that you enjoyed this. I'm glad that we got some of the You and I album on the channel. Given your reception to it or of it, I will bring more from it to the channel in the future. Hopefully, I won't wait until 2027 to do so. So perhaps in the future, a couple months, we will see Oh Brother again. But yeah, man, really appreciate your time and giving this a listen. I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah, I really liked it a lot.
Awesome. Yeah. It's kind of like me with, a handful of the acts that you've given me. It's going to be hard for me to not like one of those bands when you offer up those tracks. I think it's probably getting to be similar with you and Oh Brother. So great, man. Appreciate you. Guys out there in the listening audience, please let us know what you thought of this track Locus by Oh Brother. If you happen to be they're pretty under the radar band, but if you happen to be a fan of them and you tuned in just to see our reaction and you would like us to check out another track by them, please feel free to shout it out in the comments field below. And if you're anyone else who isn't familiar with them but happens to like another band or another song, please feel free to also shout it down in the comments field below. We will add it to our list for future Fridays, so long as that at least one of us is not familiar with it. If we both are, then I'm sorry. Perhaps we share your opinion on it, but we're not going to react to it on the channel when we've clearly already done so. But yeah, all that out of the way, please like, share, and or subscribe if you haven't done any or all of those things. We really do appreciate it, so thank you in advance. And hopefully John and I will catch all y'all in growing numbers on the next episode of the Audiophiles. We'll see you later, guys.